What's up, YouTube? Welcome in. Another YouTube live show. I am John Kurtz. Happy you're here on the channel tonight. We're going to talk Big 12 football. We're going to talk conference realignment, as always, here on the channel. Let me just go ahead and say that I appreciate the chat because tonight I saw the chat firing up before I actually went live, and I saw somebody say he is late, and my guy Matthew follow up with, "Bro, do you live under a rock?" I've conditioned you guys. This was the plan the whole time. I just conditioned you guys that I'll start anywhere from like 2 to 5 minutes late. Today we were at 3. So, that's pretty much straight in between there, right in the middle of John's Standard Time. Actually doing pretty well, all things considered, in John's Standard Time. So I do better with the YouTube timing than I do in a lot of areas of my life in terms of showing up on time. So appreciate you guys as always. We got a lot to talk about, man. What a weekend of Big 12 football. I got to watch a ton of it. Outside of being busy on Thursday night, so I didn't get to see a lot of West Virginia Baylor live. I watched about the fourth quarter of the 11 o'clock games on like the entire day on Saturday. It was glorious. It was wonderful. So a lot of Big 12 football, a lot of thoughts, certainly, and a lot of reaction to everything that has happened. Apparently, the entire league thinks that I am obsessed with their team. So let me just go ahead and from the top here, let you all know I am obsessed with your team. I will talk about them here on the YouTube channel today because of that. Not because I run a Big 12-centric YouTube channel. It's because I'm obsessed with your team. So let's go with that. Texas and Oklahoma, some big news there. And we got this dropped on Friday, I believe it was, just before the weekend of games, that it's Fox. Fox basically is who we have to thank for Texas and Oklahoma not being in the SEC already, for Texas and Oklahoma likely remaining in the Big 12 until 2025, that it is Fox who is really the holdup there. So that's a pretty juicy storyline. We also have some details on how the Big 12 is going to schedule things with Texas and Oklahoma for the next couple of years. So there's a lot of meat to dig into there on the conference realignment front. I also did read a little bit from John Canzano the other day that he is really pretty bullish on expansion happening with the Pac-12, and that including San Diego State. So if you want a little bit of a Pac-12 update, that would be it. Also, the Pac-12 continues to cannibalize itself when it comes to on-the-field performance, with Caleb Williams and USC going down in what was a tremendous game to Utah, but that's not helping out the Pac-12 at all. Now watch, Oregon will go out and beat UCLA next weekend, and then, you've got yourself a real big problem if you're the Pac-12 and trying to make the college football playoff. But as far as what happened on the field, man, shout out to the Frogs, TCU with a hell of an effort. I mean, a gritty, gutsy freaking effort to beat Oklahoma State, coming from 24-7 down in the first half. They were still down 2 scores with 10 minutes left in that game, and they find a way to win in double overtime. Thrilling game to watch. Max Duggan putting his body on the line. I mean, there is a lot to digest from that game. Spencer Sanders has already predicted a rematch between the two teams in the Big 12 championship game. We've now got another top 20 showdown in Fort Worth, this time under the lights this weekend with my K-State Wildcats taking on TCU. So it does not get any easier, certainly, for Max Duggan and company. Man, we had drama. We had controversy in Austin as Iowa State damn near took down Texas in a spot that was very Texas, frankly, until the end, when really, I mean, there's a lot of talk about the controversial officiating, but there is something Iowa State could have very easily done to still win that game, and it involves maybe their best player, and didn't get done. So if not for that, Texas probably does lose in that spot, which would be very, very Texas. Losing a game when you have all this hype generated, all this discussion about going to the playoff. Can you get there with 2 losses, and you go out and kind of lay an egg against a pretty average Iowa State team this year? Certainly a very good defense, but one without much of an offense, and Iowa State did find some ways to move the football. Oklahoma looked back to at least a normal, respectable team with Dylan Gabriel at quarterback. I mean, it's clear how big of a difference he makes for that squad. So they rolled by Kansas. Probably should have won that game by more than the 10 points that they did. Although admirable fight from Kansas, as we have become accustomed to seeing this year under Lance Leipold. Man, West Virginia getting a huge win over Baylor. Huge win over Baylor. For Neil Brown, a massive win, I would think, for a little bit of a shot at job security, a shot at extending his job anyway, putting himself in position to make a bowl game this year, which I didn't think was going to be coming for West Virginia. So how does that shake up the Big 12 tiers? I can try and give you my Big 12 tiers again, because I did take the time to plot that out, although it's very difficult, very, very difficult right now to do the tiers after the top 4. I think the top 4 are pretty easy. in your tier one. But after that, it is pretty difficult. All right, we have a couple donations. I'm going to get to those in just a second. Calico and Zach, appreciate you guys being here. If you want to join them, the way this chat is going to work, you click the $ below the chat box where it says say something to donate with your question or comment. That is how you ensure that it makes it onto the chat. There will be too much happening the rest of the night for me to be very caught up on that and keep you up to date with what's going on in the chat. So if you want to make it on, you want your opinion to be heard, you want your voice to be heard, you do it by donating. Click the $ below the chat box where it says say something, and you can donate and get on the program tonight. Also, it's a way to support the channel and support the work that I'm doing and bringing you Big 12 content week in, week out here throughout the season and throughout the year. Keeping it rolling here with this great community of Big 12 fans. So we have this over 15,000 strong now. I appreciate all of you guys. If you're watching this not live and it's taped and you want to support the channel, feel free to do so on Venmo. It's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you would like to support the channel there as well. Also, if you could like the video, that would be great. We got 134 people in here and only 20 likes. Not a great ratio. Not a great ratio. It's just one click, totally free. That's another way you can support the channel as well without spending a single dime. Okay? Just maybe like 1 calorie. You know, it might just take you 1 calorie to make that click. That's all I'm asking for from you. All I'm asking for. Okay, let me attack these first couple of donations. Then we'll get into Texas and Oklahoma having to stick around until 2025. And then we'll get into all the games, the action from this weekend. And as always, again, you guys can direct where we're going with this via your donations as well. Calico Willie, how are you, my friend? Calico Willie says, how's it going, John? After the Oklahoma State TCU game, what do you feel about K-State's chances? I'm feeling pretty good because of our D. Yeah, it's an interesting question from a K-State perspective. How do I feel about Oklahoma State and TCU, the next 2 games on K-State's schedule, after watching them play in, I almost said Stillwater, and Fort Worth? I would say that I feel about the same. And now that doesn't mean that I feel the same about those 2 teams that I do. My opinion on Oklahoma State really is pretty unchanged. I mean, I feel like I know there was some talk after the game from their offensive coordinator. Let me pull up that quote. I went and got that quote, which, by the way, shout out to Mike Gundy for having his offensive coordinators available to speak after the game. Casey Dunn, or Mike Gundy and offensive coordinator Casey Dunn. Okay. Dunn said after the game, I wish we could have put the hammer down and finished it. I'm really disappointed in myself and what we did on offense. We've got to find ways to finish that thing off. We had some chances in there. We just didn't move the ball well enough in the second half. Yeah, I do think there was an element of Oklahoma State getting a little bit too conservative there and kind of clamming up in the second half, and that probably did hurt them. But, you know, the game flow, the way the game was going, I do think that was somewhat natural. It was like it just never really felt like TCU had that extra gear, that extra punch to get back into the game until they actually did, and did just in the nick of time. But Oklahoma State's defense was playing pretty well. They were just kind of exchanging field goals. It was a field goal fest. It just felt like the second half was a bunch of jabs for a long time until about the last 8-9 minutes of the game. Teams just exchanging little jabs. Nobody was getting real big body blows or anything like that. And so I can understand how you would get a little bit more conservative there. But in the end, obviously, that was the wrong choice. It left just enough of an opening for TCU to come storming through. So, yeah, my opinion, basically what changed in that game is my opinion of TCU improved. I still think Oklahoma State is very good. I still think they have a very good chance of getting back to the Big 12 championship game. But TCU clearly has an element of toughness that I did not think that they had. Max Duggan putting his body absolutely on the line at the end of the game there to almost get the game-winning touchdown. It was cool to see. Honestly, it's cool to see. Like Max Duggan is a guy that I was not very high on coming into the year, but I like the guy. I like the competitor. He's been around for a long time. He stuck it out at TCU, even when it looked like he was going to be the backup quarterback this year to Chandler Morris. That's a very easy guy to root for. I think a pretty easy guy to get behind. So it's a really cool story. But like Gary Patterson's teams, you would expect them to have like a toughness and an edge to them, but they were so blah over the last 4 or 5 years that you saw flash immediately with Sonny Dykes, and I thought, okay, that's not the most shocking thing in the world. He's an offensive whiz, right? He's supposed to be the offensive guy. I would expect them to have a really fun and exciting offense. But man, I didn't know that they would have that kind of toughness. I do not think of Sonny Dykes' teams, like his reputation of being a team that's going to be really tough and be able to withstand a game where they didn't play all that well for about 2/3 of it and still be able to hit that extra gear and win a game late. So I feel like this TCU game is trickier than what I thought before, which I already thought was going to be pretty tricky. But I think TCU has displayed to me now that they are certainly not to be trifled with. So it's going to be a great game. I saw the early line came out; it was TCU -4. That seems about right to me. I'm totally cool with that. I don't have any issue with that, and I think it'll be a great, great game. So I still feel pretty good about where K-State sits, and really as a K-State fan, I know you're asking Calico as a K-State guy, the K-State perspective here. Just get one of the next two. Just get one of two. Beat one of those teams. Keep yourself in contention, and I'll be pretty happy with that. Which one will be easier, Oklahoma State at home or TCU on the road? I guess logic would tell you that TCU on the road is going to be tougher, being that it's on the road and they just beat Oklahoma State. But I still would put those games, pretty much right next to each other as far as which one would be more difficult. So get one of the next two and live to keep fighting, and I'll feel pretty good. What's up, Zach? Zach said, sleepy weekend in Bearcat country, so I'd like to use this time to give props to UCF for their cool uniforms this week. The Space Game threads rocked. They sure did. Thank you, Zach, resident Cincinnati fan here in the chat. Those uniforms were pretty cool. I saw. So funny story. I'm walking. That was a Thursday game, right? So it was Thursday night, and I was out with some friends at a bar, and I'm like walking, leaving, and I'm looking at the game, and I see, UCF has scored a bazillion points. They hung 70, right? I'm pretty sure I have that right. And I look up, and it's just Matt Berry, who was doing play-by-play for ESPN, with literally like a space, like an astronaut helmet on. And I was just like, I haven't seen very much of this game. I don't really understand what's happening, but at the same time, I do, because the history there with space for UCF, those space unis, which were pretty great, and a blowout game where Matthew Berry needs something to talk about on ESPN. So I really enjoyed that. UCF beat the absolute brakes off of Temple. So congratulations for that. Those were great, Zach. Thank you for chiming in, giving us a little bit of report from AAC country. Always appreciate that, and appreciate your support of the channel, my friend. Okay. Robert. What's up, Robert? Robert says, hi, John. You got to 15K subscribers. Congrats. I did. And thank you guys for that. I think I had hit it before the last live show, but I didn't even look. I hadn't paid attention to it. I've gotten a little less meticulous about checking some of that stuff. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, analytic wise, see what's performing better and all that. But I kind of just do the show and have fun and, do what I can with it. So great to see. I appreciate you guys. It's been a wonderful community here. Of fans that we built up, and Big 12 fans. So certainly very grateful, eternally grateful to you guys for all of that. And thank you for the donation, Robert. Nick, Oklahoma State fan here. Nick, I appreciate the donation. I feel for you, man. I feel for you. He says, gut punch on Saturday. I felt like our offense was unimaginative in the second half. Defense honestly played well, just a tough way to lose. TCU's first lead was in OT. Still believe the Pokes can be in Arlington. Go Pokes. Well, the Pokes can definitely still be in Arlington. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Absolutely a battle between those two teams. And I can understand the frustration with the offense. Again, with the caveat that, like, I sort of understand how the offense, the OC kind of gets like lulled into that with the game flow, the way that the game was going. Because I certainly, watching the game, I just did not feel like TCU was going to catch up. Once it was stuck at 30-16 for a while, right? Once it was there, I didn't feel like TCU was going to score 30 points. So I probably would have had some of those same tendencies as an offensive coordinator to get a little bit too conservative there. And yeah, I would not fault the Oklahoma State defense very much at all. For 2/3 of that game, they played really well. And then finally started to break a little bit there at the end when some pressure got put on them. Home crowd gets into it. You're coming down the home stretch, and then give TCU credit, obviously, for making plays and using some. Quentin Johnston, what a ridiculous talent that guy is. The size and skill set that he has is unbelievable, and he made some terrific plays, obviously, for TCU. So it's a tough one, Nick, but I'm with you. I'm with pretty much all of your thoughts there. That is definitely a gut punch. That is definitely a game where, when it's coming down to the wire like that, I anticipate, based on what the programs have been, Gundy has just been so consistent, and not only at winning games, but being they've got some grit to them. Oklahoma State typically has some grit and toughness to them. Certainly last year's team did. So I thought that was a moment where they would rise up and shine over TCU, but obviously it did not happen. So yes, I will definitely keep monitoring Oklahoma State the rest of the year with the thought that they are. I mean, I'll just give you a little bit of a. I know I blew the tease on this a little bit earlier, but top tier of the Big 12, I still absolutely have Oklahoma State in it. I don't think that really changes anything. I think you're still looking at Oklahoma State, Texas, TCU, K State as your top tier of the Big 12 there. So I see Robbie. I'm going to throw this in because I saw it. Tulane is ranked. Yes, I would just like to let everybody know here that Tulane is ranked in the top 25. Okay, Tulane 6-1, going Bullen. Best start since 1998 for them. And look, it makes me feel a little bit better about that Tulane loss to begin the year. That was not a joke of a loss. All right, we're talking about Tulane in the discussion for like, can they get in the New Year's Six discussion for the Group of Five spot there? Okay, like this is a good Tulane team. That's a salty team with a pretty salty defense. All right, so hey, let's just have some respect for the Green Wave. That's all I want out of you guys is a little bit of respect, a little bit of RESPECT for the Green Wave. Thank you. Boom to the Sooner. Thank you for the donation. Boom to the Sooner. I'm sure you're feeling much better after Saturday, getting back on the winning track. 52-42 over Kansas. Boom to the Sooner says, knocked off the Jayhawks for you and click that like button. I felt the calories melt right off. Well, see, this is a symbiotic relationship, Boom to the Sooner. I'm helping you burn calories, and you're helping me by getting me the like there, as well as your Sooners knocking off the Kansas Jayhawks. To me, the thing with Oklahoma is just like, what a difference Dylan Gabriel makes. And I think the alarming part of that to me would be like, how I mean, you handpicked a different transfer quarterback out of the portal. How is it that the drop off from Dylan Gabriel to everybody else is that bad where you're playing Wildcat 2 possessions into the game against Texas because you don't trust the guy? I mean, that's a whole other issue. And look, Venables deserves some time to try and fix that and get the program depth going. And, we can have a conversation about how much Liggett Riley left the cupboard bare or didn't with that. But Oklahoma with Dylan Gabriel, I think is clearly still a 7 or 8 win football team, right? I mean, the problem is without Dylan Gabriel and going up against a motivated Texas team, it's going to look pretty bad. So that's the boat that Oklahoma's in. It's just a much more mortal boat than we're used to seeing of Oklahoma, but they went back out and played really well. I mean, pretty well, because I will just say, I mean, I felt like they probably should have won that game by 3+ scores. Now, give Kansas credit for continuing to fight, and Kansas does have a very good offense, and Oklahoma does have legitimate problems on defense. But there were a couple of stupid moments there for Oklahoma that I feel like really cost them, and that should have been a more dominating win. But whatever, it's just what the doctor ordered for Venables. I mean, they needed a win. They beat what's been a pretty good team this year, and certainly a good story. I mean, that's a win that all of a sudden, by the time that game gets here, as crazy as it sounds, that does turn heads a little bit to like, okay, like Oklahoma's not in total free fall mode. This is not going to be a complete and utter disaster, at least as of yet, by getting that win over Kansas. So yes, I think you should feel a lot better there. Thank you, Boom to the Sooner. Matthew, what's up, Matthew? Matthew says, Texas Tech winning out. Baylor looks weak. Then going to TCU and winning okay, hang on. So Texas Tech winning out. Matthew, Texas Tech fan, thinks that the Red Raiders are winning out. He says Baylor looks weak. Then going to TCU and winning in a home game. If OSU can take over G. Carter, we will give them the Texas treatment. Okay, well, let me look at – I think we did this the other day. I think you've been on this for a while. So let me pull up Texas Tech's schedule. And I know that Texas Tech spurred the conversation earlier in the year about TCU's ticket sales there by trying to do the same thing, obviously, that you guys did at Texas. There were a lot of Oklahoma State fans there, certainly on Saturday. TCU is not a place that – look, I've been to TCU 3 or 4 times for K-State games there, and they were not all huge matchups, but even 2012, I mean, that was a 2012 K-State team that was – either ranked number 1 in the country or very close to it at that time. I'm not sure if they had climbed all the way to number 1 in the BCS by the time that game was played. But even then, with a night game and Colin Klein and K-State there, it's never been a super raucous, rowdy sort of place. So, yeah, I think it's a place that Tech fans could certainly do some damage in. So, Tech's got West Virginia this week. That's obviously very winnable at home. So, West Virginia and Baylor back-to-back. I mean, that Texas Tech week off, perfect spot for the bye in the middle of the season. This is a big couple weeks for Joey McGuire. I mean, if you come back out and win those two winnable home games against West Virginia and Baylor, bam, 5-3, heading into a road trip at TCU, then Kansas and Oklahoma, two of the last three at home. You're going to Iowa State. Yeah, it's pretty manageable. As far as the Big 12 goes, now, again, all those games I would say are very losable as well for Texas Tech and just about anybody in the league, but certainly manageable for Texas Tech the rest of the way. I mean, I think for almost anybody, predicting winning out is a really tricky exercise. Have a hard time seeing that from almost anybody in the conference. I mean, I'm trying to I literally do not think I would predict anybody in this league to win out the rest of the way. Just because there's that much parity and it's so deep, and we've already seen it. I mean, like Baylor, West Virginia is a perfect example. West Virginia jumping up and winning that game. We're going to see more results like that will be head turning at the time, just because there's too much depth in this league right now. But to your point, Texas Tech, yes, I think will win some games down the stretch here. And these next 2 weeks, I mean, that's where you have to get it started and you have to build the momentum. I think if you're McGuire and Tech and coming out of the bye, perfect time, perfect opportunity to do that. Calico Willie, what's up, Calico again? Calico says, 1 game at a time, John. 12 one-week seasons and hopefully 13. Don't sleep on any Big 12 team. And yeah, Tulane loss doesn't look too bad. It does not. Roll wave. Roll green wave. And that is, I mean, any team basically has to take it. It's such a corny cliche, 1 week at a time right now. But we're seeing it in this league, man. There is not an easy out. There's not an easy out the entire rest of the way. You know, I mean, I look at K-State's schedule, thinking about it from my perspective. All right, how are we going to get to Arlington? How are we going to do this thing? And I'm like, man, I'm like looking at that West Virginia game toward the back end of the schedule now, like going to Morgantown. Ugh, it's just not fun. That is not fun at all. And, you know, a week or two ago, I was looking at that like, okay, you know, like we can handle that. Now, especially K-State's had some issues with West Virginia. Even though Chris Kleiman has outperformed Neil Brown as a coach, there have been some issues there. There certainly have. Boom to the Sooner says, and thank you for the donation, Boom to the Sooner. My Sooners are now 4-3. Do they make a bowl? And if Gabriel stays healthy, what does OU's final record look like? Yeah, yes. Assuming Dylan Gabriel stays healthy, they're going to make a bowl. Oklahoma will definitely make a bowl. Got to pull up their schedule. I mean, it's almost a silly exercise to pull up schedules here because you just know, I mean, there are going to be games that you look at and say, well, they could win that. They certainly could lose that too. But you got at Iowa State coming up next for Oklahoma off a bye week. That's a pretty winnable proposition there. I mean, I think Iowa State's going to continue to get a little better, and their offense made some progress on Saturday. So I'd be encouraged by that if I were an Iowa State fan. But that's winnable. Baylor at home's winnable. At West Virginia, winnable. I mean, the next 3. And then you got to play Oklahoma State. That obviously will be very difficult. At Tech, I think is going to be a difficult road trip to end the year, and Tech will probably be pretty fired up for that game. But the next 3, Oklahoma could get bowl eligible in the next 3 and go 2-1. Absolutely. Yeah, I foresee if Gabriel stays healthy, I think Oklahoma's a 7 or an 8 win team. And I think you're going to have a lot of Big 12 teams that are kind of in that vicinity from 6 to 8 wins. I think you'll see a log jam there. So yeah, I think so. It's just, it's so all about Gabriel. They're just a completely different team. That offense is not, it is not the elite Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley sort of offense that we've seen in the past. All the Heisman Trophy caliber quarterbacks. It's obviously not that. I mean, Oklahoma fans were selling a bill of goods in the offseason trying to convince anybody that Dylan Gabriel and Jeff Levy was going to be as good as Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley or anywhere close to it, but they're certainly an above average to good offense. Probably good. I mean, I shouldn't say above average. That's a good offense with Dylan Gabriel. It's just not a great or an elite offense. So, yeah, there's enough there. Oklahoma's not. I've been convinced now by watching that game. Like, Oklahoma will not free fall as long as they keep their quarterback healthy. Calico says, let's not sleep on Lincoln Riley losing. LOL. Well, yeah, so Lincoln Riley did lose, but I mean, I don't, and I saw Oklahoma fans really reveling in this. And the shot at the end of the game of Caleb Williams kind of tearing up with the face mask pulled up on him. I get it. You're fans. That's what you're going to do. I'm not saying I haven't taken perverse joy and things like that before because of my team, but it just, Oklahoma fans, you guys are still very, very much in that stage of like checking the ex's Facebook. I mean, you're still logging in. Anytime I've gone through a breakup, it's off the social media platforms, every picture gone. I just out of sight, out of mind. That's how you have to do it, or else you'll continue. You'll just get yourself in trouble. You'll drive yourself crazy. But Oklahoma fans, you're still pulling up the old photos on your phone. You're still going through the Facebook, the Instagram. You're looking at her Instagram stories, trying to figure out who she's hanging out with, what she's doing. It's just a little pathetic to watch. But hey, I'm not saying you're the only ones who do it. You're just doing it right now. And Oklahoma fans typically have not been reduced to that. But yeah, there was a pretty intense push there from Oklahoma fans to take joy in that. There's no shame in losing that game to Utah. It's year one, and Lincoln had USC in the top 10, and they lost this incredible game where both teams are giving it their absolute all, and winning at Utah ain't easy. I know we've had some issues with Utah fans here and their cockiness and where they feel like their place in the world is, but their place in the world is definitely that is not an easy place to go win, and they've been as good as about anybody in the Pac-12 over the last few years. So, I mean, the fact that Lincoln was like that close, even in year one at Utah with the start that they've had, I think speaks volumes to what he is as a coach and an elite program builder. So, yes, he lost the game, but that's not anything to be that is no feather in the cap of an anti-Lincoln Riley guy to be like, oh, look, this guy sucks as a coach. There's none of that. None of that. Zach, what's up, Zach? All right, Zach, I figured maybe I'd hook you in on the Tulane discussion. I'm interested to hear your perspective on Tulane, being that they are an AAC team. Zach says, regarding Tulane, an AAC team has to make the New Year's Six group of five spot, right? How could a MAC or Mountain West or CUSA team beat a tested champ like UCF, Cincy, or Tulane? Yeah, I would think so. I certainly would be partial to that, having seen Tulane up close, man. I mean, they were really tough. They were really tough and really good against K-State, particularly on defense. They've also had to battle through some quarterback issues, and now I think that's been sorted out, and they're back healthy there. So that makes a big difference for Tulane. And Willie Fritz is a great coach. And obviously, you know how I feel about Cincy and UCF, two programs that have been there, done that, and have, the other part of it is like they have the extra, a little bit of brand value, like some brand equity that's built up there over the years that should help them out when it comes to that as well. So yes, in general, I would agree with you on that. I would. Snake. What's up, Snake? Snake says UCF fan supporting Cincy. Thanks for beating the Cows. Woof. All right. Bring this up here real quick. That's right. South Florida. So 28-24. Yeah, it was not as breezy as it probably should have been over South Florida for Cincinnati, but they did get the win. They'll stay in the top 25 with that. I was double checking on that. I was like, Bulls, I get it. UCF Bulls and Cows now. I hadn't made that connection yet, but I was like, they played USF, right? That was USF, Bulls, Cows. I get it. Thank you, Snake. And speaking of, here is Justin, our USF fan. Justin, what's up, Justin? Justin says Iowa State is 0-4 in conference play with all 4 losses being by 7 points or less. Is Matt Campbell the new Scott Frost? Will Baylor win 6 games this year? Well, you're going to get me in trouble here, Justin, because Iowa State fans think that me tweeting about a Big 12 football game that involves them is me being obsessed. So I guess, talking about it here, I'm going to have to. Reddit College Football did a good job of pointing that out, saying, hey, he's 0-4 in one possession games this year. Really trying to angle for that Nebraska job, which is pretty funny. I mean, look, it's kind of love him or hate him, be annoyed by him and the love and adulation for him or not. He is a good coach and runs a good program that's got, that defense is just such a backbone that that defense is not going to let them get blown out very often. It's going to keep them in games. And so as anemic as the offense can be, they're probably not going to get blown out a whole lot this year as they go through the Big 12 schedule. And I would imagine that they will improve because, again, you have a lot of young guys stepping into spots vacated by the Breece Hall, Charlie Kolar, Brock Purdy's of the world last year. So I don't see it as some like kind of major indictment on Campbell. I don't see it as anything that's really changing my opinion of Matt Campbell. I've always thought he was a good coach that's hit a ceiling at Iowa State, and that this would be a rebuild for them, which they've been a program that's about 7-5. And so if you take a step back, then you're looking at a 5-7 or 6-6 sort of team this year. I always kind of felt probably more on the side of 6-6, and they could get there. that stokes some optimism in me as far as their outlook for the rest of the year, the way that they played at Texas. Defense continuing to do what they do, and really did a nice job with Quinn Ewers. I mean, I know Bijan got to him eventually and hit over 100, but did a nice job with Quinn Ewers throughout the game. It's just the offense made progress, but they still are faltering in some big moments and not generating enough consistency there. No, I don't think he's like turning into Scott Frost. I don't think he's a bad coach. I think this is about he honestly, I think, is doing a hell of a job just to have them in these games with KU, K State, and now Texas in particular. Like he's doing a great job keeping them in those games. Will Baylor win 6 games? Yes. Without even looking at the schedule. Well, again, we're coming down to quarterback health, right? I have not seen an update on Blake Shapen, who got knocked out of the game on a targeting call. I have not seen the update yet on Shapen. Maybe a Baylor fan could help me out in here or somebody else. If Shapen is going to be relatively healthy the rest of the year, they've got Kansas at home. I did see the early line on that was 10, so I'd imagine that they're expecting Shapen to play. I do think they should win that game. Go to Tech, that's a toss-up. To Oklahoma, probably kind of a toss-up. At home against K-State, we'll see. Kind of a toss-up. I mean, I'm not loving making that road trip if I'm a K-State fan, which I obviously am. And then TCU and Texas, those will be very difficult. And they've got 3 wins right now. So I see your point here. The next 3, it's like 3 games that appear very winnable, 3 games that are winnable-ish. I've got faith in Dave Aranda. You guys know I've been maybe calling me an Aranda homer is a little bit strong, but I love the guy. I love his stoic nature. I love the job that he did coming into Baylor. I have faith that he'll get them to a bowl. Yeah, I think they'll be one of those teams in that 6 to 8 win range right now, and maybe a lot better. Maybe a lot better. Maybe Baylor turns it around. I wouldn't totally give up on them right now. They're going to be really feisty, I think, the rest of the year. Boom to the Sooner. What's up, Boom to the Sooner? Boom to the Sooner says, they say it takes a year to get over the X. I laughed like a lunatic as Utah fans stormed the field. I admit it. Well, I appreciate you being upfront and honest about it. And look, if I were in your position, I absolutely would be doing the same thing. I have no doubt about that. You guys know me, how much I wear my emotions on my sleeve, how much I care about this. Yes, I would be doing the same thing. It's just, again, I say this over and over. I'm a broken record. It goes back to, Oklahoma fans, you guys acted real. There's superiority complex going on after the SEC jump. And you never thought you'd be in this position that most of us are and have been as college football fans. And you're there now. And so we're going to take our shots and laugh at it a little bit. But that's okay. That's okay. You are totally free to do that. Totally free to do that. Let me pause. I know I have a couple other donations to get to here, but I'm going to pause and make sure, because we're a half hour in now and I haven't gotten to the nitty-gritty details, speaking of OU and Texas, about them being stuck in the conference until 2025. So let me get to that here real quick. This comes from CBS Sports. It was Dennis Dodd and Chip Patterson, both reporting for CBS Sports. It's going to start here with more scheduling details and then get into the Texas and Oklahoma stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to read it in chronological order here. But the Big 12 is in the process of finalizing its football schedules for the 2023 and 2024 seasons. The conference is working on a rotation for a 14-team conference slate that will include new additions BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF, as well as Texas and Oklahoma, which have 2 more seasons in the Big 12 before joining the SEC. The 9-game conference schedules will feature a temporary 2-year rotation that allows all 14 teams to play one another once. So you're going to get out of this schedule over the next 2 years, where Texas and Oklahoma, again, in part because of Fox, are in all likelihood going to be here. Everybody will get to play everybody at least once. So the headline there, if you're one of the incoming teams, if you're BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, or UCF, the headline there for you guys is you will get to play Oklahoma and Texas. As of right now, that is looking very, very likely that you will get a game against Oklahoma and Texas, which terrible news for OU and Texas. They don't want any part of that. The fans certainly don't want any part of that, especially fans who it would not be their money that would be used to bail them out early if they were getting out. I mean, that's a really easy one as a fan to just be like, whatever. Some rich donor, somebody's footing the bill for that. It ain't us. Somebody is. And we don't have to worry about that. And now we don't have to watch, if I'm a Texas fan, I don't have to go to Houston. If I'm an Oklahoma fan, I don't have to go to Cincinnati. I don't have to go play at the bounce house. These games that are clearly going to be difficult. And I don't want to hear anything from Oklahoma fans, anything at all, or Texas fans about having to play these games. man, Red Dirt Sport, a guy that I've sparred with on Twitter certainly before, Oklahoma fan boy, um, throws out there and seeing this news. Oh, I'm happy for UCF and all the AAC fan base is actually getting to play a Power Five schedule for a couple of years. Okay, great little quip. If not for the fact that at the time that was tweeted, pre-Kansas game, Oklahoma had been more than doubled up so far on the year by said Big 12 schedule that had them 0-3. So this, you can joke about it being some rinky-dink schedule all you want. You've got a rinky-dink program apparently because you were not able to handle it, and you're still 1-3 in the Big 12. So let's just pump the brakes on that a little bit. OU and Texas. Now, Texas appears to be getting it together this year, but we know what their history has been over the last 15. So, sorry, 13 years for Texas, but I digress. Rest of this, there will be permanent opponents set for both seasons without key rivalries being interrupted. So you're going to get games. Basically, the Big 12 is saying we're not going to interrupt rivalries here just for the sake of these 2 years. We'll find a way to make it work with everybody playing everybody at least once and keeping all your core rivalries intact. So I guess the question there would be, all right, what falls under key rivalries? Is that going to make everybody happy? Will there have to be some sacrifice there? If you are a squad, like Texas Tech, I know you guys have some bad blood with Baylor. I know you guys have some bad blood with TCU. Obviously, there's a lot there with Texas. Do you get all those games? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that. Is K-State, Iowa State a key rivalry? Don't know. Don't know what the league considers key rivalries there, but that's the reporting. It says the Big 12 will not play divisions those 2 years, which is good. Great, in fact. But it does say, though, it may revisit such a split in 2025 when the league moves back to 12 members. I don't love that. Like, why are we messing with that? I mean, this ground has been covered many a time here on this channel, but you need the 2 best teams playing at the end of the year. You can't get into this division stuff. You need the Baylor Oklahoma State TV rating as much as possible from last year, right? The 4+ million watching in the Big 12 championship game because it was the 2 best teams with big time stakes. If you had that north-south, Baylor and Oklahoma State, they were in the South. They were both in the South in the previous iteration of the Big 12 with those divisions. Don't mess around with that. You need to just maximize the value and the branding there. And I would think that that's where you're going to get under Yormark, who certainly is no dummy and certainly cares a lot about that type of thing. So hopefully that's where we end up. But I didn't love that little bit being included there. All right, finally, now as it relates to Texas and Oklahoma, here's the paragraph about this. It says, though there was a belief that Texas and Oklahoma may have been attempting to exit the Big 12 1 year early in 2024, sources told Dodd that Fox would likely have demanded a return to make its future programming whole, including a top-tier selection of games years into the future, given the marquee programs would have left its airwaves early. That's beyond what would have been a potentially massive early exit fee the programs would have needed to pay the Big 12 directly. So basically the idea there being like, Fox, shut that down. Fox was like, look, you're not doing this, Oklahoma and Texas. Big 12, you're not going to be able to. Big 12, you can't cut these guys a deal. You can't let them cut you a check to get out of it early and agree to this because now we're going to be missing primetime inventory. That hurts us. We're not doing it. So you guys are stuck. You guys are screwed there. Being Texas and Oklahoma, basically. And I'm sure, you're not having to twist the Big 12's arm a whole lot at this point to be like, hey, make those guys stay in for another couple of years. They're still going to pay you $80 million on their way out the door for the exit fee. Just make those guys pay that money, make them stick around, get us our inventory, get us our big noon Saturday with Oklahoma against whoever, Texas against whoever. Keep that intact for another couple of years. We'll be good and wash our hands, call it all good after that. So you got Fox to thank. If you're an AAC team in particular, or BYU, one of these teams coming in here, BYU getting to go play Texas, BYU maybe get to host Oklahoma, you got Fox to thank, it sounds like, for that, which will be good for everybody involved except Texas and Oklahoma. So I'm all for it. I'm definitely all for that. And honestly, I was thinking about this today. I remember when the news of this first broke. Like, I can think back to that video. There's a video on the channel when I talked with Robert Allen from Oklahoma State, who is the sideline reporter there and has been involved with Oklahoma State football and athletics for a long time. Very well-connected guy. And I remember him dropping like the money quote when I asked him, like, hey, what's Bedlam going to be like this year after Oklahoma decides to up and leave without taking Oklahoma State along? He said, something to the effect of, the end of it was like, well, and, people might want to be wearing a helmet on the sideline, basically, with a comment in jest there. And it was like we all thought and felt like this was going to be just nasty environments. And how will this work? Like fans are going to go nuclear and go nuts. And I mean, I'm not saying fans have been easy on anybody at Oklahoma or Texas, but there's not been some like disastrous scenario. This has not played out like some crazy otherworldly event. Generally it's like, all right, we know what's going on. Yes, there's a lot of fighting on Twitter, etc., but like it's pretty much the same. Little extra vitriol here or there, perhaps from a crowd, but it's pretty much the same as what we had before. So I don't, there doesn't need to be some huge fear of an awkward situation or something happening if these teams are sticking around another couple of years. I don't see it as really like that big of a deal, other than, and frankly, the other part of this is like Texas and Oklahoma, particularly right now, Oklahoma. And I didn't think it would be Oklahoma that we'd be having this like sit down intervention with right now. Thought it'd be Texas, but Texas seems to be getting its stuff together. I mean, for so long, Texas was the rich trust fund kid that just couldn't do anything on their own. Now, look, Texas has got a job. Texas is cleaning up. Texas is no longer just showing up like in the pajama pants with a bowl of cereal at 2 p.m. Like Texas is getting up out of bed early, getting to the office by 9, and making a good, respectable daily wage. Going out there and being a productive member of society right now. We'll see if it lasts. But for now, they're doing that. Oklahoma is absolutely not. I mean, Oklahoma's got the alarm beating next to just going crazy next to the bed on the nightstand at 1:30 in the afternoon, hitting snooze, rolling back over, just Chinese takeout containers all over the living room. What the hell happened, Oklahoma? Now, are you guys ready for this? Like, are you really bummed that you're going to have to stick around another couple of years in the Big 12? You guys feeling ready to go take on the world with not only Georgia and Alabama, but now Tennessee? Brian Kelly's at LSU. They had a nice win this Saturday. Like, you guys feeling ready for that? Good chance somebody could knock out Dylan Gabriel pretty quick, because we saw it happen in a Big 12 game. Now you're going to go play this SEC schedule. I mean, you're one quarterback injury away from being a Wildcat impotent offense that gets shut out by Texas on a day when everybody else in college football scored. You think you're really ready for the big time? I mean, this could be a blessing in disguise for Oklahoma trying to get its ish together before going to the SEC, like figuring out what it is you have in Venables. Is he really the guy? And if he's not, you can still cut bait after 2 years, go hire somebody else. Or, if you listen to some Oklahoma fans right now, just cut bait now and go hire Matt Rule and let him get it up and rolling before you actually take it to the SEC. So, I mean, that's another angle on this too. I don't know that this should be met with a ton of dismay in Norman based on what your program is like right now. Goes on to say in the article, make sure I'm not reading something I haven't already read. All right. Fox and ESPN are currently partners in Big 12 programming, while ESPN will be the exclusive TV partner of the SEC beginning in 2025, and the Longhorns and Sooners join the league. The Big 12 is actively seeking a new media rights deal with Fox and ESPN, both engaged in conversations. Okay. So, not anything else really new there. The rest of the article, that is basically it. But it sounds like Texas and Oklahoma will be around for the next couple of years. It sounds like incoming teams, the 4 newcomers, will get their crack at Texas and Oklahoma at least once, and you'll continue to get games if you are the rest of the 8 teams in this league against those 2 schools for the next few years. So still some time to get those shots in if you haven't already. If you're not like K-State and Texas Tech already this year, getting those big shots in. You're not like TCU getting a big shot in at Oklahoma already. You'll have an opportunity to. Okay, Calico Willie. Back to the donations here, by the way. If you want to donate, control content in the chat, get your voice heard, you're going to need to donate to do so. You click the $ below the chat box where it says say something. That is how you do that. Not only do you get your question or comment on the chat, not only do you control the content here, but you support the work that I'm doing and bringing you Big 12 content week in, week out here. So always appreciate the support there. If you're watching taped and not catching it live, you can donate on my Venmo. It's just John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you'd like to support the channel that way as well. And of course, like the video, please. It just takes 1 click, totally free. But if you like the video, that helps me out with the YouTube algorithm, generate more views, etc. So I always do appreciate that as well. Calico Willie, what's up, Calico? Calico says, John, I'm not an OU sympathizer. I'm still bitter about a certain double look at an onside kick so Lincoln Riley can kick rocks. EMA. Okay. So I can understand that, not loving Lincoln Riley. Lincoln could be a little whiny, a little pouty on the sideline. I wasn't always the biggest fan of that, and certainly, yeah, that onside kick thing was pretty frustrating last year. But in general, I mean, I always was jealous of him. I mean, you're an elite program, and I understand the shortcomings and coming up just short. Although I still feel like, I mean, Oklahoma should have won that Rose Bowl game and played for a national championship under Riley. Um, but that was an elite team with a really fun offense and great quarterback play. It was just, it was kind of like the Chiefs, I guess minus the Super Bowl. But I mean, it's the greatest thing in the world being a Chiefs fan, a lifelong Chiefs fan watching so much crap football. And now you get not only a fun team, but a fun team with an awesome offense. It's just stylistically fun in addition to winning fun. And that's how I felt about Oklahoma. So I appreciated Lincoln Riley from that standpoint, just being like an offensive genius. Not only from what he did schematically, but then becoming a guy who was just going to pull in the top talent offensively across the country because dudes want to come play for that guy. So I have always kind of liked him and appreciated him for that in general, although some of those moments in games were bad. Like the complaining about what went on at Baylor last year, that also rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, yeah, like Lincoln Riley's got some whininess to him. No doubt about that. I would not deny that. Wouldn't deny it at all. Here we go. Browns and Beers. What's up, Browns and Beers? Browns and Beers says, John, you can be obsessed with my team. Great win for West Virginia on Thursday. Was there and was great to see live. Go Ears and go Guardians. Hey, there you go. Shout out to the Guardians. I don't watch really any playoff baseball. But, West Virginia. Let me get to that game. I got a couple notes on that game. I mean, how about back against the wall Neil Brown here? Okay, Neil Brown has had a rough go of it this year. Not only blowing that Pitt game, being the first team to really have to see what Kansas was this year. So at the time, you took the brunt of the Kansas loss as if it were still an old Kansas loss at the time, instead of now us realizing like, oh, that actually was not really a bad loss at all. And it came in overtime. So there's really not a ton of shame in that. Not nobody showing up, but not a totally full Milan Puskar Stadium because fans are starting to get antsy and get frustrated with it at the end there. You're down CJ Donaldson, this phenom this year that is injured. And what do? You go and play the defending Big 12 champs and knock them off 43-40. Hell of a game, hell of a win for Neil Brown. And you have to give a lot of credit to a lot of people. I mean, one, Brown for just keeping the ship together, understanding like, hey, we were close against Kansas, right? This is not the Texas game was not good. I should have thrown that in too. You had 2 weeks to think about the Texas loss. So 2 weeks to think about the Texas loss. Not a lot of fans showing up, people calling for your job. You're down your freshman phenom, maybe best player, and you go out and beat the defending Big 12 champs. Like I'm a narrative guy. That's a hell of a narrative for what Neil Brown did on Saturday or on Thursday rather, undoubtedly. And will just, to me, with that, give himself a chance to make a bowl game. And therefore a chance to save his job. Because I'm not going to lie, before that game on Thursday, I felt like this was inevitable. Seemed like Neil Brown was going to be done. And I get that the buyout is kind of a hang up, but we're just in a day and age in college football where it feels like most of the time, if the fan unrest is what it was seemingly in Morgantown before that game, it's going to get done one way or the other. It's going to get done. Felt like you were in jeopardy of really, really losing the fan base there. Now, I don't know, and West Virginia fans, you guys could do a better job of informing me this and telling me this. I don't know exactly how much goodwill that one game does, but it certainly, I think, gets your attention and brings you back to, all right, we need to be paying attention to the rest of this season and see how it goes. Because if you can beat Baylor at home, and there are winnable games left on the schedule, undoubtedly. For West Virginia, if that can happen. And I will just throw this out there too. I mean, you think about the season, I get that West Virginia is 3-3. I get that I've had them as the worst team in the Big 12 most of the year, but they are just a play or two away. If you flip one play in the Pitt or Kansas games and you just I'm even saying just give them one of those wins and you're 4-2 right now looking at it, you'd be thinking differently, I feel like, about this Mountaineer team. 4-2 with either the Pitt or Kansas game, with the blowout win at Virginia Tech. Yes, I know they're not good at all. And now a home win over Baylor. You would not be thinking like that's too out of the ordinary for West Virginia. It's a pretty fine line that Neil Brown has been walking this year, and he's given himself an opportunity, I think, to get to a bowl and save the job. We'll see if it actually plays out. It's not going to be easy, but that restored some faith from me, certainly, in Neil Brown's ability to do so. Now, does that mean he's still the long-term answer there at West Virginia? I would completely understand if you said, no, I'm still pretty tapped out on this. I don't think he's going to be the guy. Let's not overreact to one win. So, yeah, there's probably some caution that needs to be exercised there and not overreacting too much to one win, but still a hell of a performance. Like back against the wall, over my dead body sort of performance from Neil Brown and company to win that game in that spot. So lots of credit there. Lots of credit. Boom to the Sooner. Boom to the Sooner says, Texas's fans tell me they're back on social media. What are they back to exactly? It's a good question because, I mean, honestly, Texas was about back to losing stupid games in the Big 12 that they shouldn't be losing. They were that close. And this is where, let me make this point because I teed this up earlier and didn't totally hammer it home. If Xavier Hutchinson, who is talent-wise and like pound for pound, one of the best offensive skill players in this league, if he just catches a wide open pass at the 10-yard line, Iowa State's scoring to go ahead with about 2 minutes left in that game. And very real chance that Iowa State wins that game in Austin. But instead, he kind of stumbles and awkwardly dives to the ball and drops it. And for the second straight week, a Xavier Hutchinson drop kind of cost Iowa State the game. And so, like, that's the line. We were that close to Texas being right back to what they always are, which is a tease and a disappointment. Now, they learned to win ugly, and I have seen the case, and I think the narrative from Texas fans, perhaps rightfully so, would be here like, well, hey, listen, we won ugly. We won when we didn't have our best stuff. We won when Quinn Ewers wasn't totally hot, and we just found a way, and that's what Texas hasn't been doing. Yeah, touche. There is that. And so that maybe this is a massive sign of growth. I had just watched the Iowa State offense the week before, and so I don't know. It was a little difficult for me to be like, well, I mean, it seemed like the Iowa State offense made some real progress there for you. And Quinn Ewers, who was supposed to be the reason that you have a playoff chance all of a sudden, he didn't really do very much against that Iowa State defense. So I have some concerns there. I would very much caution Texas fans in feeling like they're totally back here because that performance was indicative of they're very susceptible to still losing games the rest of the way. If you're going to almost lose to Iowa State at home, you're going to be susceptible to losing basically every game left on your schedule. And I said it on Twitter earlier this week, expecting Texas to play consistent football throughout half of a season through a 6-game stretch is a fool's errand in general. I mean, the last 13 years, that's been a fool's errand to expect that from Texas. Now you throw in the deepest the Big 12 has probably been. I mean, I'm saying that without going through and cross-checking every single year since then. But you throw in how deep this league is, that just seems like a totally crazy proposition to expect Texas to get it done. So I would imagine they're going to lose another game at least the rest of the year. They might be back. I think best case scenario to me, Boom to the Sooner, is that they would be back to like the level of that Sam Ehlinger Sugar Bowl team. I think that would be the peak for Texas this year. I don't think they're getting to the playoff. I do think they'll lose another game in the Big 12 regular season. Still have a shot to win the Big 12 championship, though. Still have a shot to get to a New Year's Six bowl. I do think that's on the table for them. They're certainly talented enough to do that. Calico Willie, what's up, Calico? Calico says, who gets 2 looks on a review? Oh, I know, OU. Well, or Lincoln Riley. Maybe it was just Lincoln Riley and not OU, huh? Maybe that was the pull of Lincoln. Zach says, cheers to my new friend Snake, Cincy and UCF. Look at that. Forming some friendships, forming some Big 12 bonds here. Cincy and UCF getting together. I feel like we had Texas Tech and K-State the other day when the Tech K-State game was coming up. A lot of unity there. And not much hate. I love it. I love to see it. Let kumbaya as much as we can. Let's kumbaya, folks. All right, you got this is about your 3 to 5 minute warning. 3 to 5 minute warning. If you have something that is on your mind that we have not gotten to yet, and you want to get it in before the end of the show here, now is the time. Click the $ below the chat box where it says say something, and make sure you get that in. That'll pin your chat up at the top for me and make sure that I see it. Also a way to support me, bringing you Big 12 content week in, week out here on the channel. And if you're watching this taped, it's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you'd like to contribute as well. So I've got some Big 12 tiers for you here. I've got some Big 12 tiers, and we can look over what's coming up this week in the Big 12. This is such a difficult exercise outside of the top 4. The top 4, I think, to me, remain very clear. Like TCU, Oklahoma State, nothing changes to me there. They're both top-tier Big 12 teams. They both have a great chance to get back to the Big 12 championship. The quote from Spencer Sanders was, Spencer Sanders said, quote, "This game is behind us. Nothing we can do now. We'll meet them in Arlington." So a very like definitive statement there from Spencer Sanders that they're going to meet them in Arlington. We'll see. I understand how you could feel about that right after the game. I think both teams have a very good chance too, but don't sleep on Texas. Don't sleep on K-State, who are your other two teams, I think, in the top tier of the Big 12. And I think right now that's pretty clear. I think that has been pretty firmly established. Outside of that, man, I mean, like tier 2, tier 3, it is tough. And understand, I don't hate your team. This is a snapshot in time. This is a difficult thing. Texas Tech, if you wanted to criticize me and say, how did Texas Tech just move up a tier by not playing this week? I did some reconsideration there on Tech. And even just having some people who watched the last show where I had Tech in tier 3 being like, are you sure about that? I think, and I was like, you know what? That's fair. That's fair. Tech, to me, feisty enough to be in tier 2. I'm including Kansas and Oklahoma also in tier 2 as still teams that I think are very feisty, are going to win some more games the rest of the year. And because, again, prisoner in the moment a little bit, disappointed in Baylor in that performance, I'm dropping them into tier 3 with West Virginia and Iowa State. And once again, Iowa State, I think, can get better. They've been a real pest for anybody right now that's a pretty good Big 12 team. I think they will continue to be so. But when you're 0-4, I'm going to have to drop you into that bottom tier. You're 0-4 there. Complain all you want about the officiating, and I think Iowa State got kind of screwed. First of all, the targeting call early in the game on Iowa State was BS. Texas winds up scoring on that drive. The play at the end with Deckers, I thought it was targeting. I understand how it was kind of bang and a little bit close. I thought it was targeting. There's especially an alternate angle that's gone out now. You can see it on my Twitter account at JL Kurtz if you want to watch it. That really looked like it was targeting. I also thought it was like 50-50. I mean, to me, it was like 50-50 targeting, 50-50 Decker's knee is on the ground before the ball's fumbled, and Iowa State got both of them going against them. It's a really tough break. But again, Xavier Hutchinson, if he catches a ball 2 weeks in a row at the end of the game, Iowa State's probably 2-2 right now in the Big 12. K-State game, he dropped a ball on the sideline that would have put him close to field goal range when their kicker was red hot in a 1-point game late. So 2 big drops from your big players. So guys do have to go make plays. And that's why, again, long story short, I'll say 0-4 is 0-4. And they've had opportunities there to go win games. Kicker shanks 3 field goals in Lawrence. Xavier Hutchinson drops balls in the next 2 Big 12 games. Boom. There you go. Unlucky with some of the officiating, no doubt, but you have to go make plays and you have to go win games, and those opportunities were there for Iowa State. So that's kind of, to me, where I'm at on my Big 12 tiers right now. Boom to the Sooner. I'm going to be closing us off here. Boom to the Sooner. Thank you for another donation, my friend. Boom to the Sooner says, I get that I'm not a typical OU fan, but I'm good with staying until 2025. We'll get some games that feel like nice out-of-conference games in Norman. Yeah, well, hey, I appreciate one. It's a very refreshing attitude that you have, Boom to the Sooner. And I can appreciate that. And if you are Oklahoma, yeah, make the best of it, It's not like, I think looking at it as like non-conference games is a pretty good strategy there. Because if you went, if Oklahoma went and played a game at Cincinnati tomorrow, or if they had played a game at Cincinnati back in September this year, that would have been a pretty big game. Like, people would have been excited about that. I think even Oklahoma could get behind being excited about that when Cincy just made the playoff last year. So yeah, I understand some of the condescension there and, we're going to the SEC and whatever, but let's not disrespect these programs that are coming into the conference here. I mean, playing a game against BYU, Oklahoma should have plenty of respect for BYU as well. So yes, I appreciate your attitude there. I think a lot of people definitely can. And again, I think this can be a blessing in disguise for Oklahoma. Whatever's going to happen, whether Venables is the guy or not, these extra 2 years can be invaluable where you just try to get your you-know-what together before having to go face the real world. Can you get your stuff together before you go face the real world? Zach, thank you once again. Zach says, here's $2. Tell everyone that Houston still sucks. Oh, boy, we got to come after Houston. Look, that was Zach, all right? That was Zach, but Zach paid the money, so I said it. Let me see. Houston, they were off, so now they've got at Navy this week. At Navy, South Florida, at SMU, Temple, East Carolina, and Tulsa. the remaining schedule for Houston. We'll see if Dana actually has this thing turned around, if he's going to parlay that momentum from that miraculous win that they had last week or not. We'll find out. It's going to do it for us and me. I say us, really just me. This is a solo operation, but you guys are a huge part of it too, as the community. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for a lively chat as always. Hit me up on Twitter at @JOKurtz if you want to get in touch with me. I try to be pretty responsive in the DMs there. Spread the word about the channel, family, friends, social media, wherever it is that you know people that like Big 12 sports, that love college football. Let them know about the channel, and let's continue to build this community even bigger and bigger. Justin gets in at the gun. Justin says UCF sucks. That's our USF fan, Justin. Sorry, UCF fans. He got you there, unless someone's going to come in at the last moment. That looks like that'll be the last word right as we hit 1 hour on the show. Take care, guys. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Hopefully Sunday Night Football is still good. I'm about to go find out. I have no idea. We'll see. Take care.